It's great to have you here. I'm Marius. I'm joined here with Alex, right? And we talk about a really interesting and hot topic, right? How to embed analytics and embedding Tableau especially. And we're talking about the whys, whens, and hows. When you talk about embedding and embedding analytics, you usually stand in front of one question. Do I rather build my own analytics capabilities into my product when I share this with customers maybe or internally? Or do I rather want to buy capabilities from Tableau, for instance, and just use their development, right? And all the development money that they put into designing and designing the product. So, and you're not the only one working or having that question. So we both love data and we both love Formula One. So I think that's quite a good example, right? So these are all the current teams in the Formula One and their points on historically, right? How many points they gathered historically with Ferrari at the top. What do you guys think? I'm testing your energy level now. What do you think? How many of these teams are building their own engine for their cars? 3 or 4? You have to decide. 3? 3?
Is more? 3.
1. We have 1 over there as well. So, yeah. So quite a mixed answer. Let's have a look. So, obviously I have a viz on this. If I just log in again. So we like logging in as Michael Schumacher, checking this, right? Very secure password. All right, and then we have that viz, right? So let's check. Let's go to the next one. Now we see the actual engines these teams are using, right? We have Ferrari, they are building their own engine, right? That makes sense. But then already McLaren, Red Bull, they are using a Renault engine actually under the hood. And Mercedes are building and engineering their own engine. Williams are using that engine, right? So they are standing in front of the same question, do we build our own engine or do we buy the expertise from maybe a team that has already developed a really good engine and bring this into our car, right? That's exactly what these teams were then deciding. McLaren, for instance, they bought the Renault and they focus on the part they're really good at, right? The aerodynamics, really build a performant car, how to let the engine work together with the chassis and so on, right? So that's what they're really good at.
What I like about Red Bull, for example, Red Bull uses Renault, but you wouldn't know if you wouldn't do a research because they say it's a Tag Heuer, that watch that makes the engine. So that is an OEM, right, model. They have a different license that allows them to rebrand that engine, right? But it is a Renault, the same one.
Exactly. So I took that out of the viz actually already. So that's exactly the decision you guys might stand. So who's deciding right now? So do we build analytics or do we embed Tableau? Is anyone standing in front of that choice right now? Over there, yeah, at least 1, 2, right? And that's what we're discussing today, right? We want to make you successful with that decision on the one hand, and then looking into the different options that you have and finding the right solution for you. And at the end, building an amazing Tableau-powered product in terms of data analytics, right? So in this case, a Tableau engine built into your product. So who are these jokers here in the front? So I'm Marius. I'm joined here by my co-presenter Alex, and Alex is really the best guy to talk to you about this topic because he's not only working with customers and working with a lot of customers embedding Tableau and using and building proper products that they sell out, right? But he's already he already worked as well with the Formula One team, one of the biggest ones, and helped them to see and understand racing data, which is really exciting, which we're going to see a bit more about later on. But what can you tell us about that story?
Yeah, I love this picture, by the way, because I'm taller than him in this picture. I never get to be taller than anyone else, but yeah, there I managed. Yeah, this was an interesting case when I had this Formula One team coming to us and saying, we are considering using your technology to help the engineers on the track. You know, the guys, you're looking at that big, thick monitor and projecting to the end of the race, you know, what we should do, looking at 180 sensors. So is Tableau potentially a good solution to help us doing that? And I went around on the web and I found some Formula One data, and I had really 1 hour with them, and we got that data, we put it in, how do we visualize this? So we came up with quickly this idea, and this is in Monaco, the actual telemetry data from Hamilton in 2011. Yeah, so I quite like this one. And I have a little secret that I didn't tell my colleagues, but I used to, I'm from Brazil. I was hoping to follow the path of Ayrton Senna one day, and I was a very good go-kart racer when I was young. And I ended up not going this direction, but it was great because I ended up here, and it's even more amazing at Tableau. But we had a team event, and I obviously won. Yay! And they're like, what the heck? How can it be?
We didn't have a proper chance.
Yeah. And not only that, I won, and I made the best lap of the last 2 weeks for that race. And I didn't drive for 5 years. I haven't been doing this anymore. But they said, oh, you're too light. That's your advantage, of course.
and very humble.
Oh, yeah. But I think actually Marius is the most important, the best person to be in this position, because he's been also helping customers embed Tableau. And he's been actually working with very large customers with very challenging questions. And like in this case here, I think Marius did something amazing, which I haven't seen anyone doing. He was the only one that I know actually trying to design something that would run on a dashboard of a Tesla car. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, that's true. So we built a dashboard. I was working with the Tesla owners together and their API to get the data from their cars. And the idea was to within a hackathon, to build a dashboard that is then running in the actual Tesla dashboard, right? If you've seen a Tesla before, they have a really large screen basically in the middle console, and you can run Tableau on there as well, right? If you want to, and that made me very, very happy, obviously. So that is us sitting in the Tesla and testing out our prototype. Anyway, so the Formula One is one of the most data-driven sports there is, right? They look at the data all the time in real time, and they actually create a really interesting and exciting experience with data for the viewers as well. Any Formula One fans in the room? One at least, two, nice. So if you watch the Formula One, you get real-time feedback of what is happening with data, right? And it's actually, if you think about it, it's an embedded use case somehow, that you embed the data and the viewer can see that directly, right? It's a really, really exciting experience with data, and to enrich the experience there for the viewer there. So obviously today we want to talk about embedded analytics, but with Tableau. And there are a lot of different use cases, and I want to talk you through some examples, how it can be used, why it's been used, and when you should use it as well. So how we use it internally massively is we embed Tableau into Salesforce, right? So if a sales rep goes to any account, any contact, they see vises in that context around any data for this account or for this contact. So with what elements of the website was he looking at, what white papers did he download, how often did he call us, these kind of things. And obviously the sales rep could move over to Tableau server and look at the data there, but here it's really nicely embedded into Salesforce, and he can see it directly where he's actually working. right, in this current workflow. Then another example is building a custom portal. So maybe some of you already have a custom portal or are thinking of building a custom portal, meaning you build a website for your users, for your customers to log in, look at their personal data or maybe benchmark data in your custom and an adapted portal. So I can show you an example of that actually. One of our amazing friends at Interworks, they have...
Anyone from Interworks here?
No, they're already, already at the party. So they built a portal demo that you can access as well, and that has all the elements really that you can have a look at and adjust for your own purposes, right? So it's at portaldemo.interworks.com, and you can play around with it and try it out. So you can log in. We're currently just in the web portal. We logged in as a demo user, and we can now select different views that we might want to look at, right? So this is dynamically generated depending on the content that is on their server, and we can have a look at the hospital comparison, for instance. So now we have the thumbnails of the actual Tableau views, but not a live view yet. If you click on this, it's loading, so this is a customized loading experience now as well, and we get the live view then on Tableau server. That is served by Tableau server, but it's still nicely embedded into that web portal, right? So this is now the view. It's still fully interactive, so I can click on the different states, for example. The data will adjust. And the really cool bit is it's not just embedded, but I can also have web elements around it that are interacting with the viz itself, right? So I can go ahead and, for instance, here have a filter element on the right side that I can use and automatically or interact with the view itself, right? So I was filtering here from the web element into the view, right? And then there are other elements that you can leverage here as well, like refreshing the data, exporting this into a PDF, for instance, or creating or downloading the data, right? These are all web elements that the portal is talking or communicating with the Tableau server in the background, right? Perfect. So
one thing about this portal, which is interesting as well, imagine like Amazon. They started creating all these virtual machines just to get the job done, their job done, and they realized they could industrialize and sell what they were doing to millions and millions of customers. So like potentially Interworks created this custom portal for a client, and they realized, why can we not use Tableau's APIs to provision millions of versions of this application, right? And very smartly, dynamically generate this portal over and over and over, all by using our APIs. Yeah.
Exactly. And this is basically Tableau as a component in a web application, right? And it's completely integrated, it's seamless, and it looks as it's part of that whole product, that whole portal. And that's exactly what you can achieve as well. You can even do that with custom mobile apps, right? Embed the vizes and the views into mobile apps with the mobile SDK. And the main advantages here are, as you know, Tableau is very, very interactive. It's very easy to build dashboards, to build content. You have a live connectivity to so many data sources. If you want to build this with your own product, that's very, very hard to achieve in that manner, right? And it's very flexible. You can customize it. You can fit it into your custom and your corporate design. And we saw a couple of customers actually speaking and talking about how they achieved this at the conference. So you can check that out later at YouTube, for instance.
And you can also have business people, like not only developers and techies building those dashboards that will be presented to the end users, right? Because if you decide to build yourself, you're going to be doing something in JavaScript, D3, etc., which only a very few people, amount of people can actually do. Now you can have
Good point,
business
yeah.
people on the comment who know the business, who know what dashboards they want to surface to clients doing that, and prototyping very quickly and then moving to production.
Exactly, that's exactly the point, and we don't forget about the security at the end, right? Single sign-on experience is available, or it can be enabled, and we still make sure that everything is secure. Customers only see their data, and they don't have access to anyone other data, right? And then, but the main thing our customers are really concerned and really important for them is to really make that whole experience look like their product, right? Really embedded into what they want their customers to experience with their product and with the data at the end. So we have different examples there that we can share from customers embedding it. So one example would be Mountainalytics, for example. They are analyzing how people are moving around in a ski resort which tracks their skiing on and how satisfied they are. And they're sharing that with their customers, in this example, ski resorts, in a web application that is then embedding Tableau visualizations and make it really easy for the customers to understand the data and how satisfied their customers are. That's their main selling point. The advantages there are that they can quickly build these views, embed it, and really make it seem like it's theirs, right? One of the very, very impressive use cases as well is by Siemens. They have a product called MindSphere, and which is mainly an IoT platform where they can connect any type of sensors to that platform and gather all that data, right? They have huge amounts of data that they can process for their customers, and they chose Tableau as the visual layer then on top of that data, and their customers can then go ahead and interact with it. You can see as well, it's nicely seamlessly embedded into Siemens web portal there, right? And you have the Tableau views in these panels. Plus, they enabled their users to interact with the visualization, to choose which measures they want to look at on which time scale, for instance, filter it down, and really look at the data they want to explore and analyze, and at the end to find the insight, right? That's the most important bit, to find the insight in the data and then optimize their machines where the sensor data is coming from.
And they build a marketplace as well, right?
Yeah.
So can you imagine, they sell the sensors, they sell all these end points with the sensors, the collection, the data storage, and they provide the toolkits for allowing developer companies to build products on top of their IoT platform. They do the hard work. The developers just take their APIs, ingest the data, use Tableau as the front end to present to the users how this data is being used and the analytics on the data. So we have companies like Atos, which ones? We have a lot of consultancy companies like Deloitte building products on top of that MindSphere platform. So like process automation, manufacturing optimization, all these kind of things. And in the end of the day, Tableau is the engine to just display this data. But Siemens managed to monetize this in a huge scale. It's amazing.
Yeah. So the big question now in the room is, how do we achieve this, right? So who's currently thinking of building a custom portal with data, maybe for internal use or external use? Give me a show of hands. All right, a lot of people in the room. That's why you're here, and that's amazing. So, Alex, can you tell us more about how we achieve this, and what are the key elements?
Yeah, absolutely. So, how many of you there are intending to do that, or everyone basically? Who is a developer here? How many of you code? Okay. So a few coders, product managers, product owners. Yeah, so I mean, I'm not a developer myself. I can write some dummy, silly code, but what we'll do today, we will actually write down together a few lines of code, just so you get a feeling of how easy it is to get started, and what are the key components you need to get going and so that you feel comfortable on, you know, what you really need to start and where to find more information. So I want to talk about a recipe for embedding Tableau, and I love this picture because this is something on the Mercedes World Museum. Has anyone been there? Oh, you've been? I really want to go. I haven't been there, and it's supposedly not too far from here. Like, and this is a deconstructed Formula One car hanging. These things are strings, and it's actually hanging on the place there. But the point is that to get to the final product, to assembly all these pieces, and to put it to run a race, those teams, the Formula One teams, go through a slightly similar, paradigm as us. They have this engine, right, at the heart that they have to put in the shell of the car, the chassis, and obviously they have the engineers having to make sure that when they get a new chassis and put the engine, all the settings are provisioned quickly. They don't have time, right? If you are on a training and you need to spin up a new car, obviously they can do it very quickly with all the settings for the pedal, so they have ways of doing this. And obviously, if I'm the driver, as soon as I show up there on the team area, they know who I am. I'm signed in already, right? So I shouldn't be signing into every single system. So these are the main components as well for Tableau. So the first thing we have is a JavaScript API that will allow us to take that heart, the visualization, the Tableau server, and take a single visualization and put on a single website. And also to create all those controls of the car, of our application, that interact with that heart, right, the engine, the visualization itself. So then we have, like I said, we need a way to automatically provision and manage that information. So instead of having a single visualization on a single page, if I can automate this to, if a new user comes in, generate different visualizations that only that user is supposed to see. And then a different person comes in, I need to provision other visualizations. If I need to spin up a new version of my web application or mobile application to a new customer, I need the REST API as well to automatically generate, new users that I add to my application. They should go to Tableau as well. So the REST API helps us with that. We will also talk about the server client library, which is a wrapper for the REST API to make handling code, HTTP requests and responses easier, just to make the life of a developer easier. And finally, like I said, we need to be able to provide a great user experience for the end user. So single sign-on is extremely important. And as you know from the car, we saw the picture, that's not all we need. There's always going to be something else, like the media company will come to Mercedes and say, hey, I want to put that the camera on the cockpit, and I want to show that the dashboard with the speed in real time. So all of a sudden we need to have those systems talk to each other, right? The telemetry from the car going to the media company, etc. In Tableau, we might have data coming from a web system, and we might want to use our web data connector, which is sort of another API, or our SDK to generate data programmatically, generate extracts programmatically. That's another way. We have the extensions API coming soon. You saw the demo, hopefully. They show me more. What if we want to put a wicked graphic there? It's hard to do in Tableau, so we can just export those extensions. So the other things will always be there. But today we're going to focus on these three main components. So we'll hop into the code, get you a little bit familiar, and yeah. So let's build a portal finally. So our portal is going to look something like this. Very, very simple. We have a banner of the conference, and our drivers will log in and they will see the data they are supposed to see, right? The analytics that are secured, are governed. So maybe a different driver will see different visualizations altogether. Some of those visualizations will change the data points based on who they are, so they don't see each other's data. We won't get to that point, but we'll build something like this. And the first component is the JavaScript API. Like I said, let's take a single dashboard and embed on a single page. And let's also create some controls that ideally will match the look and feel of our mobile app. The buttons will be the buttons that fit nicely to the app. Now I'll create some buttons on the portal so we see how the JavaScript API can help interact with this visualization. And I'm going to build something like this. But before I actually build something like this, I just want to tell you that the quickest way to start embedding, it's amazingly simple. You can, let's say you have the visualization here. And is it the Michael Schumacher?
Yeah, just pick it from there. Yeah.
There. Okay. So let's say this is what I want to embed. I can go straight to the share button.
You don't share right now.
Oh. How do I share? Oh, yeah. Duplicate.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. Okay. So I have this visualization that I want to embed. And the quickest and quick and dirty way to start is just to go to the share button and grab the embed code. You go to any text web editor and just build a very simple file like this, test page that is a HTML page. You save as HTML and just try to throw the code there and save, and then go to your web browser and open this page. And all of a sudden you have your first embedded application, right? It's the quickest, absolutely quickest way to understand how things are working behind the scenes. And just to show that this is not black magic, let's add a header here and say, hello, TC devs. Now you're all devs. Save and refresh. And there we go. So that's the easiest way. So to get to the portal itself, I have here a HTML file with the page, right? And I want the visualization in the middle. So what I have is just a few things that are relevant here. This is the code for that page. And there's really two things when it comes to the JavaScript API that we need to know. First one is this div here. We need to have a div that we will use to inject the visualization. So it has to be an empty div. That's where the visualization is going to go. So I need to have an ID that I can reference on my JavaScript. The other thing that we need is this file here. We need the code for the JavaScript API itself. And that is tableau-2.js or tableau-2.min.js. And you can grab it from Tableau Public, or you can grab it from where your Tableau server is deployed. That's probably better. Or even Tableau Online. So that's all we need to do now. And then we need to have the JavaScript code that will actually create that new instance of that new visualization that we want to inject in the HTML code. So let's do that. So the first thing we need is when I load that page, the website, I want to create a few variables here. First of all the first one is the vis div. The other one is the vis URL. And the third one is really the options, right? How we want to customize this to the look and feel. So the div is actually something we grab from the website. So document.getElementById, and the ID is the one that we wrote earlier. So I think it was my vis. Then we have the URL. And the URL, you might be tempted to go and let's say you have a dashboard here and you might be tempted to grab it from here. This is going to cause a problem. Don't do it. go to the share code and get it from here, because if you have sites, the format can change. So yeah, that's the right place. Copy and paste into your code. And I like to delete all these parameters because we can set them on the options. I don't have to. And then we have the options here, which is going to be an array full of options. One of them could be the height of the visualization. So let's say 728 pixels. We could have width with maybe 124. And then we could have, I like to usually hide the toolbars. You know, those, if you embed code, there will be a toolbar here at the bottom with those controls that show here on the top. Those controls actually go to the bottom or the top of the visualization. I like to hide them because I'm going to add those controls on my application itself, like we saw the Interworks portal. So I say hide toolbar. And this is all well documented, of course. True. And then I'm going to also hide tabs because I might want to have sheets as tabs controlled on my application so that the tab experience is controlled on my application itself. Hide tabs. True. So once we have that, the only thing we need to do is to really create that new Viz object. So it's going to be, so let's call the JavaScript API now and say we call the Viz method with capital V and we pass those three variables. Viz div, Viz URL, and our options. And hopefully this works. We pray to the demo gods. See if that works. Let's go back there and refresh our page. Yes,
Yay.
it works. Amazing, right? So that's as simple as that, right? So now we have JavaScript API in action. So the next step is really to add some interactivity between the application and the visualization. And maybe we might decide that our application for corporate standard or user experience, like Interworks, we don't want filters, like to change the laps. We don't want filters on our visualization. We might want to streamline the filter experience on the right or left. So let's just create a simple filter here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go back to the HTML code and inject a button here, which will be the filter button. And we'll put some JavaScript code. So when I click on the button in the HTML, that triggers a function that changes the lap here. Okay, so in the interest of time, I created that button already in HTML. I just added 3 laps for now. So the filter name is called lap. So I'm gonna, when I click on a button, I'm gonna call a function I decided to call show. Apply this to a filter called lap. I do have a filter in the visualization called lap, and the value itself.
Yeah, that's the link to the Tableau visualization, right? The lab, lab filter.
The lab filter, yeah, the name of the filter itself. So here in the JavaScript, I should have a piece of code, this function, that is a show function that takes those 2 arguments, the filter name and the values. And what I want to do is, first I need to know, let's go back to our embedded page, where is this filter coming from? In this case, this filter is coming from, if you see, everything changes, so it's applied to all fields, but it does come from one particular field, obviously, and to all, basically. But let's say I go to this view, I have to find that filter, right? So I have to help the JavaScript code drill down to and find that filter. So what do we have here? We have this sheet, we have this one. So I happen to know that this one here is called map. So I have to go and drill down to map and then find the filter. How do we do that? So we have a new variable here, our sheet, that we are trying to find. So it's going to be from that object that we started, the visualization that it's a global variable in this case here, we still have it. We go there and we start by getting the workbook. So we have the workbook. Workbooks have sheets, and we go to the active sheet, the one that is visible. So get active sheet. Sheets, like I showed you, have worksheets, many worksheets, like 1, 2, 3, 4. This one's on the top. So let's get all the worksheets. And once I have the worksheets, I just need the one called map. Perfect. Now that I have typo. Yes. Thank you. The demo gods would not like that. Exactly. Amazing. So now that we have the sheet, let's just do something with this sheet. So now we call the methods from the JavaScript API. So in this case, I'm going to call the apply filter async. So this could be select marks async if I want to grab the marks and do something with them, and so on. So it could be, switch tabs async. So what I need to pass here is the filter name, the values that came from HTML, and one more parameter in this case, which is the filter update type. And the update type, if you imagine the visualization, you have a drop-down filter, and you can tick and add more things. So as the user clicks, you might want to add. That's one option. If they unclick, you might want to call the JavaScript API and remove. And we're not going to touch now the event handling, but you can listen to events of the users clicking and apply this kind of things, remove filters, add filters. But in this case, I just want to replace because I want to see one lap at a time. All right? And I think that's it. So I'm going to save this, Control S, and refresh. And the button is there. Hopefully it's hooked up to our JavaScript. And let's change to lap 2. And it works again. Beautiful.
Yay.
Today my coding is working well.
On point. Just on that note, right? So the sessions are all recorded, right? So obviously it's quite fast to go through the code. Plus we have a lot of tutorials where you have examples and where you can grab those example code, right, to get started. So you don't have to write down all the code now. That's impossible.
And the presentation will be available
yeah,
as well,
exactly.
Right?
Tomorrow probably, yeah.
Yeah, in 48 hours this is live up from the time we finish. Right, so let's do one more thing, right, with the JavaScript API. Very commonly we want to grab the data from the visualization and use for some reason on our application. Be it create a fancy graph or to send data right back. So we need a method to get data. And so I'm going to just add another component to the page, which is going to be another button. And so if I save this, now I have a button, get data button, that doesn't do anything here. So I just want to add some code to get data. And in this case, I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to print it here so you see the magic of the JavaScript API. So I have already created that function here. And what it does is it calls, so we have the sheet again, right? And what we want to do with that, we want to call a method called getSummaryData async. I just want to grab the information which is the summary data from that map, the location, the position, the speed, the RPM of the car, etc., etc. And in this case, what I'll do with that, I'm just going to print it to the screen. It's an ugly solution, but to prove the point. And so if I go and save this one now, and press the button, and hopefully that works. Yeah, like this. So now it's getting the lap number 1 data. So I can switch to lap 3, and we could grab the data again and watch the numbers hopefully change. Yeah, and it does.
Works.
Yeah, amazing. So that's the JavaScript API in action. So what kind of things we can do with the JavaScript API? We covered a few. We can filter marks, select marks, switch tabs, as I said. We can respond to user events. I think it's critical. And I heard, so if you think about the extensions API, that's all it's doing. It's listening to what's happening with user clicking around. So yeah, that becomes a critical thing with the event management. And we can get data and do crazy stuff. So use cases, right, for the JavaScript API. Custom buttons that seamlessly have the look and feel of your web applications. Data integration, passing data from this visualization to downstream systems and vice versa. So clicking on something on the system and using that to filter back in Tableau or select a parameter, you name it. Refresh the dashboard. And some crazy stuff. I saw a guy doing a Mario Bros. Dashboard in Tableau. They're one of the partners in the conference. Someone doing Mortal Kombat. All kinds of crazy stuff. Hopefully they have some business use one day playing Mario Bros. I like to play to get the stress away sometimes. Right, so, okay, so this is this was amazing, and we saw how to take that one visualization, single vis, put on a single page. How do we scale this, like to millions of visualizations potentially? How do we manage users dynamically? How do we add visualizations, render them dynamically? How do we generate code dynamically and injecting the JavaScript API? So
exactly.
Let's talk about.
Exactly. That's all done by the REST API, right? So we've done it with one viz and one web page, but you might have several customers who want to look at their particular vizzes, and that all has to be dynamic, right? They have to dynamically be updated in the portal and see their vizzes. And this is done by the REST API and then the server client library, which is a wrapper, a Python wrapper around the API to make it easier to use the API itself. A quick intro into REST for non-developers. It's a protocol for web-based communication, and the main thing is it's program language agnostic. That means it can be used in any programming language, whatever you're using, C++, Python, C#, and so on. And you can leverage our REST APIs. What does it do with, in terms of Tableau server? It's all around if you think about the Tableau server and the user interface, everything you can do there can be run with the REST API, right? So adding users, adding groups, adding users to groups, query what views users have access to, and so on and so forth. You can update, you can publish workbooks, data sources without going into desktop and pushing it up and publishing it to Tableau server. And then the whole server organization with sites, projects, groups, permissions, schedules, and so on. If you look at a typical REST API request, right? We start with the server IP or URL, right? And then the version of the API, in this case 2.7, and we're using the sites endpoint here and the groups function to, in this case, request and create a new group on our server, just with the command line and the API. This is a post request. We need to give it a authentication token to make sure that it's a user that is logged in and has permissions to do that. And we pass in a request body as well to tell Tableau server what name this group should have. That's a typical request. And a customer actually showed me this. He showed me Postman, which is an open source and a free tool to explore and use REST APIs on a proof of concept level, right? You can use any API and understand what it's doing and how it functions, but really more on a proof of concept basis. So I've done this with the REST API, and you can actually download from GitHub on our website some examples here where you have the whole level of REST APIs, what you can do with it in folders and collections, so you don't have to manually find that on the website, which is very handy, or was very handy for me, definitely. And what we see here is we can test the different endpoints now and the different requests. So for instance, in this case we have a post request and we just want to sign in, right? This is the sign-in method of the auth endpoint of the API, right? So let's do that. You see already why this is not the most secure thing, and most for a production environment, I have to pass my credentials in the request as a free text here. But if I do this, so my credentials are Michael Shoemaker and the password is Ferrari, I can run this now, and I get an answer back. If that's the right credentials, I get a credential token here, what we need for further requests. And I get the site ID and the user ID. So let's grab the credentials token, which we need for another API call. In this case, I want to query all the workbooks Michael Shoemaker has access to, right? So what do you have to do? I'm calling a get request to the same server. This is now our site ID that we got in the previous request, and we're using the workbooks function here to query all the workbooks, right? So we grab the auth token, run the request, and we see now all the different views in XML that Michael Shoemaker has access to. So these are 4 views, all in the racing project. So he has only access to the racing project. So this is a great way to get started with the REST API and understand how it functions, what you can use it for, what is possible, what are the capabilities. And then we added, we are sharing a client library around the APIs. It's a wrapper around the APIs to simplify the handling of the REST API calls. What you've seen now in a raw format can be now done with code and much easier. As an example, to publish a workbook to a Tableau server, that would take 300 lines of code just if you use the raw REST API. If you use the server client library, that is reduced to just 20 lines of code. But because it's handling all the complex things in the background, like the handling of the payload and so on, and to pass on the auth token, what we just saw. This is written in Python, and you can fully use that and leverage and adjust for your use.
And it's fully maintained by Tableau, right?
And it's maintained and supported by Tableau, exactly. So what can I do with the REST API? I can do enterprise automation, so creating users, making sure they have the right permissions. I can audit the content, what kind of workbooks do I have, publish workbooks, data sources, remove them. I can completely integrate into my workflows. So let's say creating PDFs, or from the web portal, creating PDFs and then sending that by email, integrating that into the workflows. And then obviously embedded analytics. So let's double click into that and see what we can do there. So on the one hand, you want to synchronize your users from your portal and the Tableau server. That's very important. That's done by the REST API. So let's say a user can log in and sign up actually on your portal, and in the background, Tableau server creates a user straight away in the back end. You can publish workbooks, and you can dynamically display contents, like the views on the server. And then what we want to do now is to take what Alex showed us and take it to the next level. Build a more scalable solution with a whole portal around it that is managing who's logging in and a dynamic content. So how do we do this? We have 3 levels and 3 methods that we want to use. That is 1, handling the sign-in of the user, querying the workbooks for the user, and then getting and grabbing the thumbnails for each of the workbooks or views. So let's have a look what the overall goal is here.
So while Marius is setting this up, so what we have is the front end, which is the application running on the web browser, and we have this backend code which is the Python, right? So basically these are talking to each other. When the user navigates to a page, it can trigger actions that are executed in the back end in a fully protected way, for example.
Exactly. So I've designed my custom login page here, right? We log in with the same user, Michael Schumacher. Actually the same password as well, and I log in and I get my dynamic list of views that I have access to as a user, right? So I was handling my login. I see all the views and workbooks that I have access to, and I get the thumbnails of the current look of those dashboards, right? And then from there on, I can click to the next viz and actually explore the viz and have it embedded into my portal, what Alex showed you, right? So that's the overall goal that we want to achieve. And let's have a quick look into the code, how this is done. So this is leveraging now the server library, right, that I was talking about. We can add things like the Tableau server, and it's already handling the login of the user, which is key. So we create a authentication variable and token here. So this is the client library, and this is one of the functions here, Tableau auth, and we're creating an auth variable with the username and the password, right? That's what we typed into our portal. Then we create a server instance, so that is the server that I'm using in the backend. Great, and then we get a signed in successful notification if the user is on the server. So it's secure, the portal already. And the next step, if this is successful, we get rerouted to the next step, which is using the views endpoint, and we are querying all the views that this user has access to, right? And for all the views that we then get from this request, we want to populate the images. So what you might notice, there are no REST API calls in there. That is all handled by the Tableau server client library in the background, right? So you just use the functions here, like querying the workbooks or the sign-in methods, and you can leverage that straight away.
So when you see there the TSC object, this is the library we downloaded, the Python library, which is the wrapper, and it exposes the functions from the REST API. So the naming convention and the format, the structure has been kept seamless. And if we would be adding new methods in the REST API, our team, our developer will expose this in the Python library as well.
Exactly. And then what you have to do at the end is importing the Tableau server client, and then you are able to leverage those functions, right? And we have some code examples as well to get you started quickly on our GitHub. We share the resources at the end with you. Great. So a quick recap. What did we see? So what did this code do at the end? We were able to create a sign-in experience for the user. We were able to handle that sign-in, the user, and query the workbooks dynamically, right? Depending on which user is logging in, this user gets his views. And then for each of the views, we were querying the workbooks, and we got the current thumbnail of those, right? Just with a couple of lines of code that you can use as well and leverage in your projects. All right, the next step is then you don't want to log in all the time, right? And you want to pass it over.
What happens if I click on that visualization? Does it show me?
I have to log in again, actually. Yeah.
Let's have a look. So that's annoying, right? You logged in on the portal, and then you click on the visualization. That's the moment when Tableau is gonna, the browser or the front end, the mobile app will actually render the visualization. So probably we were already logged in on a different tab, in this case, in the browser. So this shows up for us automatically.
Yep.
But if we wouldn't be already logged in Tableau server, which we were,
In the background, yeah.
in the background, then it would pop up a new message, log in again. Okay? So that is a very, very annoying user experience that we want to avoid. So Tableau server supports a number of single sign-on methods so that this doesn't happen. The driver sits there and, come on, you know who I am. I'm Ayrton Senna. Right? So you don't have to log in again. So when you're thinking about single sign-on, there are standard technologies out there, and these are some of the most popular. SAML is by far the one I see more often. So your web application may be already using one of those. So that is a decision point. If I already have one of those one of these authentication methods on my application, I can enable that in Tableau as well, and Tableau can leverage, right, that authentication method. If not, then we have, by the way, yeah, it's very easy to know how to configure SAML or OpenID protocol or Kerberos. Our manual has a lot of information about that. But if that's not the case, then we have a proprietary method called trusted tickets, trusted authentication. And it's a specific feature for single sign-on, and it works with any authentication your portal already has. So to be honest, this is what we see more often. The customers will be using trusted authentication at some point, or perhaps SAML. Right? They already use SAML. So SAML is widely used with identity providers. So if you have, Okta, OneLogin, these kind of systems, they use SAML. So Trusted Tickets uses a simple POST request from your backend to to pass the credentials on behalf of a user. So let me show you visually how this looks like. But in order to do that, the only configuration we need to do on the server is to say, where is our backend application running? The one that is going to be requesting that token, that ticket, to hand in to the end user on the browser or on the mobile app with the ticket to do whatever they want to do on Tableau server. So we have to put the IP addresses of the machines that we run our application.
We have to speed up a little bit.
Oh yes, absolutely.
2 more minutes.
So in the interest of time, this is a visual representation we have on our website. It works really in 3 steps, and I was going to go through an explanation, but it sounds very daunting when you look at our page on our website, but it's really simple, really. In summary, what it does, if I quickly skim through, the user will come in on the app or the browser and say, I want a viz. That's the visualization. So he navigates to a page on the portal that contains a visualization. I want this visualization. I have the URL. It tells the web application, right? The web application will go to Tableau server and say, hey, the user, Michael Schumacher or Marius, wants this viz. Tableau server will say, do I know Marius? And do I know who this request is coming from? Web app. Yes, I know you. And Marius is a real user. Okay, here's a ticket. Give it to your user. And then the backend app constructs a slightly different URL that contains that ticket and puts that in the browser so the user logs in, requests the visualization with a URL containing that ticket. Simple as that. So, yeah.
Let's quickly recap, right? We went from the very simple embed, where we just grabbed the embed code, embed it into a web page, over to customizing that, adding buttons to it with the JavaScript API, and then scaling that up, right, with a proper security, with the user login, and a custom experience and dynamic experience for any user, right? And we went through the steps. We gave you some code examples and show you how to get started. So we're going to share some resources with you to get you started, to our developer portal, right? And depending on your use case, you can then decide how far do you take it, which of the elements do you need, and for your custom situation, right? So we are.
Those are the resources, right?
These are the resources. So if you look at tableau.com developers, for instance, but you can check that out in the recording then afterwards.
Playbook.
And the playbook is very important. That's really the one place to go if you want to get started with Tableau embedding is the Tableau GitHub embedding playbook. If you search that, you will definitely find it, and that has all the elements we showed today, tutorials, and that is really if you take one resource here, that's definitely it. Perfect. And so when you get out of the session, ideally just build a viz if you don't have it yet on Tableau Server or on Tableau Online. Grab the embed code and play around with it. Embed it into a simple HTML page, and maybe start customizing a bit with the JavaScript API and get started. Right? Awesome. I hope you got some good starting points, some good information what is possible, and we're still sticking around for questions if you have any questions. And yeah.
And please, before you leave or whenever you have time, go to our session on the app, scroll all the way to the bottom and rate us, because it really helps us thinking about the content for next time, and we appreciate your feedback, honest feedback. Okay? So we'll be here for questions if you have any.
Thank you.